Hey up everybody and welcome back. So, Monday morning, hopefully we're going to have a nice productive week. Week hasn't started off very well though. I got up this morning, 8 o'clock as usual, opened the curtains and it was white outside. And then when I looked at the weather forecast, the next few days it just said snow showers every day. So I guess the winter has arrived in upstate New York. So I'm glad I went out and rode on Saturday. Alright then, so we'll carry on with these upgrades. And I've ordered the camshaft and the cam followers for this. As I say, we'll try it. I'm going to show you some stuff about that because we're going to do a little bit of work with it to fit the camshaft into this later engine. But we're going to do that work so that if it doesn't work here, we can go back to the original camshaft, and this camshaft I'm buying, I still have one round barrel B44, so it will go in that. So it's not lost money if you like. But that will have to arrive before we can fit it. So what we're going to do, of course, is finish this exhaust first off. So I've actually tidied up a little bit and taken the back wheel out so I can get at this, and I have thought of a way to do this which I think will make it easy. We'll probably bring the welder over and do some tacking in situ for this last little bit. But I'm going to move you over now and explain that to you, and then we'll get stuck in. Right, well, as I say, I've taken the back wheel out so I can get in around here. Oh, that's the little bolt that holds the mud guard on. It's in a bracket back there. I hadn't been able to get it out before. So anyway, not only can I get in the back to work on this, but I can get in to these brake lines, these oil lines, and also when I come to put the exhaust back in, oh dear, it's the start of the week and my mouth isn't working. The mud guard back in, I can make sure it goes around that. Alright, so what I thought I'd do here to make it relatively easy to connect this to that is I'm going to have the connector on this. You're going to be able to get at the clamp easily, see? So what I'm going to do is make up the connector and then make up a suitable oh, pardon me. Then make up the right length of hose. Then what we'll do is we'll slide in the connector. We'll put the connector here. I said hose then, didn't I? Tube. God, maybe I should go back to bed. So that it reaches across to there. Then when that's right, we'll tack on, as I say, I'll do it over here so I can get at it. We'll tack on the connector, take this off, weld it up, then put it back with the connector with the tube in there so that the tube reaches here, and hopefully be able to get a couple of tacks on it firmly enough so that I can take this silencer off, take that off and weld it on. And then hopefully, because it was assembled in situ, it'll go back together. And while I've got this off, as I say, I think if I maybe put a longer piece of tube on that so I can make it go over that way a bit. Anyway, we'll think about that when we've done this. So let's get 2 pieces of tube, the one that sleeves, short one that sleeves the longer one, and see how this is going to work. Right, I think we're having a change of plan. I keep forgetting that this exhaust pipe isn't the usual 1.5 from the bit like I have on the bigger bikes, on the Enfields and the 441. It's basically this size. It's 1/16 different ID. So as we're looking at gas flow all the time, this virtually would be no restriction, certainly after it's gone through baffles and stuff, to that exhaust pipe. And it just turns out that the corn end that I made there is the right size for this. So I could weld that onto there, put the connector there. I can still get it, tighten it up. So we're going to do exactly the same system. We'll cut the pipe, the tube, we'll make the connector, we'll fit it in, and we'll tack it as we can, and then make this. Again, this, I'm not going to make this as a cone. This is going to have to be shaped. Hang on. Yeah, you can just see it. This is going to have to be shaped like that was, from a piece of sheet. Well, the cones are made from a piece of sheet. But, so, I think that'll work. Hopefully it will anyway. So let me cut a length of that. And the only trouble is, of course, that's 1.5 inches. This is, it's actually 1.25 inches. So of course, it's a loose fit. So we're going to have to sleeve this down. We're going to have to put some slots in it, reduce the diameter, and then it'll fit that tight. My brain really is working slowly this morning. Must be that snow, the shock. Alright, let me fiddle these bits together and then we'll see what we can do. So there's how that will go. But as you can see, it isn't actually touching there, but it's nearly touching it. I'm wondering whether I just, cut the pipe at an angle and then turn the two pieces round 180 degrees to put a little bit of a kink in it right there. Kick it up towards that. The other way, of course, well, so if I did make one cut, these cones are really difficult to make. Well, for me, I could make the cone so it went down a bit, and then has, because I've still got to have the sleeve piece on. Let me see about making the sleeve piece. I've got plenty of this this 1.5 inches. Let me make a sleeve piece. See, the sleeve piece has to be pointing at that. I'm trying to do this so you can see it and I can see it. I think that's the way to do it, put a kink in it and then get it to point at the sleeve piece. Let me do my slash cut, turn it round to put a dog leg in it. Well, it's not really a dog leg. So I've put my little cut in there to make it go into this, and I've also angled this end. It had to be angled sort of up and down and front to back, which was a bit of a pain, but that seems to be touching all the way around now. That's a nice fit. So I think I'll bring the welder over, see if I can tack that there. Then we'll make that piece to go on this end. Yeah, then we'll make the piece to go on that end. and I can weld that to that and then take the whole thing off and make this piece. And then everything is good, it's not touching anywhere. There's actually a gap off on that, there's about 1/4 of an inch to that oil pipe. And I'm going to heat that up to soften it and then pull it over. And then I think we'll be alright for that. We don't have to worry about anything. So let me bring the welder over, get these cleaned up so I can get it tacked there. Try and tack it at the top and tack it just there, or spot it anyway. So I can take this off, get that nice and rigid, and then we can work on this end. I can even maybe move that up slightly like that. Although actually when I move it up I bring it towards that. But anyway, let me get this cleaned up and the welder over here. Right, so there's that tacked in situ. So let me take this off, weld that up, and then we'll see about making this thing for the other end. So there's that welded on. That is going to go in there. Go on there. Right, missing the suspension unit. We've got a gap there, a huge gap there. Actually, we want to be like that, or we're going to touch on that bolt there. Oh, why is there always one bit that's... Actually, if that comes down a little bit, it'll miss that. Okay, so let me make up the piece to go onto there and then we'll see about that. That's going to get shortened a little bit. Right, let's see. So I made a piece up for that. I actually used a piece of the 1.5 inch, and let me see if I can turn it around for you to see it. No, it's up against... I had to slit it and cut a piece out of the circumference and weld it back up. Now I've got the slots in, so as you can see it needs to come back. So I've marked there level with that. So if I cut that off like that, that should be clear of that bolt and about equal with that. So let me just go and cut that off. For every 2 steps forward there's always one back, isn't there? So of course, because I used a slightly smaller tube here, as I say, I had to pull in 1.5 inch. This is made 1.5 inch wide. So instead of that touching around the edge, it actually fits inside it. See, that should be like that. But it's not, because it's slightly smaller. I suppose I can pinch it up. Take that off, pinch that up a little bit. Then I've got to make my nice piece to go there. But it's working, so let me, I'll take this off. Pinch it up. We'll go from there. Right, so did you hear me swearing? I thought to myself, I can tack that on the bottom. Put a big enough tack on so that it's secure, but not too strong so that I can't just flex it a little bit. And then I can get it right and then do a bit of weld. And what did I do? I welded it on upside down. Hey lad. you see, that's not good, is it? That's why I want to do it on here, so that I know it all fits together. Think, whoops, pardon my head, that is catching. Yeah, so that needs a little bit more cutting off. Let me just go and cut a smidgen more off that. I'll try again. See, I'm hoping that just that one tack will hold it right, and then I can put another one on. See, as I've mentioned before, you really need to have everything tightened up, because like with things like this, you think you've got it right, and then when I tighten that, it kicks up a bit. I think that needs to come up a bit more. Now I think I'm going to cut that tack, and we're going to run it up to here and tack it. Right then, that's on tight, so that's not going to move. This is tight, so that's not going to move. And I've put a clip on there, so that is right in there. So now I'm going to attempt to weld uphill. There, then we'll let it all cool down, weld the other side, and then I'll make a nice little curvy bit to go on there. Fingers crossed I will. Right then, while you've been away, that's cooled down, and while that was cooled down, I warmed up the oil line, put a whole cable tie on it onto the other one, pulled it, and it's gone way over there. So now let's see what happens here. Ta-da! I'm trying not to get my head in the way. You'll notice that was a pretty poor bit of welding, but it's holding. Ta-da-da-da-da-da. Great, so let me weld that up, and then we'll try and make a piece to go on there. And oh, that's miles away from that oil line now. Excellent, excellent. Alright, just done the worst piece of welding you've ever seen in your life around the bottom of that. I had to grind it out and redo it all again before I smoothed it out. But it all went back together perfectly. It's all tightened up now. So all we have to do is cut a little piece of plate and form it up to fit onto there. So let me do that. Well, I'll show you some of that. Alright, I have lost, oh there it is. I cut out a roughish piece. I'm going to form it on this because this is 1.5 inches. So I can form a nice end. See, the same as that. It's a pity actually I might be able to knock these out a little bit. Yeah, let's try doing that. Let's try straightening that. I'm out to your site, I know, but I'm just... Yeah. So we're going to start, where are we? With this. The first thing we're going to do, this is 3003 and it's been annealed. So there's our first thing we're going to start, because that is going to go around that. So it actually needs to start that like that, you see, and then we will start. No, you can't, hang on, let's see if it's any better at putting you around there. That, you see, is to get that like that. So I'll just keep working on this. Making it more and more of our little curve. Need to shorten that. So let me cut a piece off. And I'm just going around behind you. You're going to hear the bandsaw. Back. It's getting more towards it. So what I really need to do is put a curve in that. So I'll slowly get this down so this is where it wants to be. And then actually, it's getting on for 5 o'clock. I'm going to give it a few more minutes and then I'm going to knock off. So I'll see you tomorrow. Good morning. Still snowing. Snowed last night. I heard the snow plough go past at about 5 o'clock this morning. And it was 25 degrees when I got up, which is what? -4 centigrade. Alright. There's that. I've just got to do a little bit of work, a little bit of planishing work to get a couple of bumps out. But there we go for that. Can you see that? Yeah. Alright, so there's that on there. So as I say, let me just get this a little bit smoother and then I'll get it welded on and we'll go and put it on the bike. Alright then, there you go. Doesn't that look nice, you say? Yeah, I got it all done, and then the very last little bit, because I was so close to the edge of there, I burnt that out. So what I'm going to have to do, well, I should have thought of this actually, is get a bit of steel stock that'll fit in there perfectly and act as a heat sink. Yeah, I was having a little bit of trouble, but I'd got sort of all of it done and then it just went blip. I'm surprised you didn't hear me in your little workshop, Dean. I was pissed. I mean, that is like the very, very last ½ inch of weld to do on the entire exhaust system. It just went plink. So let me, I don't think I've got, size is this, basically 1.25 inches. See if I can find a piece of steel that I can turn down, fit in there, and then I'll, I haven't even got the little bit that fell out, I don't think. Make up a new piece, weld it in. What I'll do is I'll make it with a shorter slot. Well, I'll weld a solid piece in actually, and then I'll do the slots. I might just put one slot in the middle, in fact. Anyway, I'll fix it now I've calmed down. So there's the setup, and it's slightly annoying actually, because when I went to look for a piece of scrap, I found one that was exactly the right size to fit in there. So anyway, I've put it in, made up a little piece to go in there, and I put the clamp on as well, so everything's held. It's hard up against a piece of cold steel. Just weld that along the bottom and we should be done. Alright, sorry but the heating's come on, so you'll just have to put up with it. Right, that took me twice as long to do as I expected. I got this bit done. It's not perfect, but good it's going to go. Last night before I knocked off, I gave that a coat of the high temperature black paint. To tidy it up. So that is going to go on there. Like thusly. I'll put it in a minute. Then we want that on that way. That's the wrong side of that bracket. Go goes in there like that. Oh, let's wash this hold on. Alright, there it is. All tightened up. And it looks just the way my little cardboard original thing did, if you remember. Near as damn it. So, oh, I did notice when I was doing the videos that a couple of times the angle I had the camera at, it looked as if this was pressing on there, but it isn't. This is actually a little bit forward of that, and with the curve it's nowhere near it. So we're all right. Okay, so put the mudguard back on, and then we can move on to the next thing. Alright, there's the wheeling and the mudguard. Got this little bolt up the back here. It took me ages. Sort of curved pliers and all sorts of things. Should have put a captive nut on that so I could just screw it in. Anyway, it's all on. And as with every sort of new thing I try, I learn something. And what I learned from building this was, do not build another one. Looks good, but my God, did that take me a long time. Any road up, I think, excuse me, one has to admit it looks a bit better than that. Sorry, Jensen, I mean, that was your first attempt, so, and it was my design. I think I had one like that on the other BSA, so right. Okay. Not sure when the camshaft is arriving. Funnily enough, I didn't get a confirmation email from Peter at BSA Unit Singles from the order, so I better check that I didn't forget to click on something and the order didn't go through. So what we'll do is we'll look at that rocker box and whether we can put our valve lifter thing, decompressor, on it. But I am going to go and have some scran. So I'll see you afterwards. Right, well, I've had a cup of tea and a cheese and piccalilli sandwich, so I'm raring to go. Okay. Where are we? 250. B25, I think this is a B44. So the first thing you'll notice is they're a slightly different shape. See, that sort of comes out more there, and that is different shape. The couple of main differences with them are, you'll notice there, that's the valve end of the rocker. It's just got a foot on it. This has got an adjuster in it. Right, now when you turn them over, there's the rocker feed. It's actually sort of cast into the head. On these, the rocker feed is with two banjos and an oil pipe going back. So, and there you can see the adjusters, whereas these don't have adjusters. Now you'll also notice that even with the rockers up, you can't see the end of the rockers there. You can there. Now, the adjustment on these is made, hang on, let me make sure you can still see. With that, this spindle, unlike this spindle, is on an eccentric. So you slacken off the nuts on this side, and when you turn that, it moves the whole rocker spindle up and down. But just looking at it, what I've noticed is, hang on, let's switch this on. So the rockers here centre to centre, 3.330. These rockers, centre to centre, oops, I'm up against the 430. So they're 130 thou further apart, but the really big difference is here. I'll get it right in a minute. Try and make it so you can see this. I don't know if you can see, but you see how far apart they are? You see how much closer together they are. I'm thinking they maybe put them closer together because the barrel is longer, so the push rods are a lot longer. So it's changed the angle of the push rods down on the camshaft because the tappets are in exactly the same place at the bottom, the same distance apart. So if they'd have had those where the push rods go on them as far apart in this head, because they were a lot longer, the push rods, because the push rods would have to be further apart so they wouldn't fit in the tunnel. So they've brought them closer together. So I would say that's a non-starter, so we can forget that. We're not going to be able to fit a decompressor in there because the decompressor goes in that hole. See it there? And the decompressor, which I think is a very strange design, it's actually a valve lifter. The Enfield Bullet, for instance, actually has a decompressor, a valve. So this is the valve lifter. So it goes in there, that way up with the lever down there. Now you would think they'd make it with this like a cam, so that when you turned it and it pressed on the rocker arm, just nicely eased its way on. But it doesn't. It actually goes in that way. And that leading edge pushes on the rocker. So I'm hoping you can see all this. I don't think, we can't get that in there. Here you see it's all the way out here, and it can press on the head of the rocker. But there, the head of the rocker is so far that way, can't get that in. So, okay, that is a non-starter. And even though I've ordered decompressor cable, that's alright, because it's the one that I'll need for the round barrel B44. So I suppose I should have a look at this bit of video, and this is one of those things. I'm going to look at this bit of video, and if you can't see what I want to show you, then I'm going to scrap it and redo it, and you'll never see this piece that I'm saying that I'm going to look at. So let me look at it. Alright, so you did see everything, but just to stop you having to make a comment, my maths as usual was terrible. This is 3.330 apart, this is 3.430 apart, so it's 100 thou wider than the 250. Alright, so now we're just waiting for the camshaft to arrive, and that's a sort of one-day job to strip the engine and put it in and be finished. So I'm going to knock off for the day. I'm going to go and sit and read my book. So I'll see you whenever. Right, well, I got an email to say the camshaft will be here next Monday. It's Thursday. So I thought, right, a couple of other little jobs I can do. And I think the video is getting on a bit, so I wanted to hear what this sounded like. So I've just rigged up the little petrol bottle thing. Let's see. Sound bad. Not as quiet as I was hoping it was going to be, but believe me, I'd quite cracked to it before. So, who was it mentioning? Was it you, Les, that mentioned, when I mentioned Hondas, that the Honda used to have a big triangular one in here? You're right, it did. And actually, I think the very first one I made for my bike, because I didn't have the TIG welder, I was gas welding everything, and I made out of steel. I think that fitted in there, but it looked horrible. I think the Honda ones look horrible, which is why I didn't do it that way, Les. But, could be worse. Right, I want to show you something regarding camshafts. Now, when I was checking up to see if that soft B40 cam would fit in the B44, I must have misunderstood Peter Quick about something, because I'm sure when I said it was the round barrel B44, which, as you may remember, still has the B40 head, and it was just the next model up from the B40 when the sort of C25 came out. I thought he said, oh, it's alright being a round barrel one because the bushes are the same. So I was assuming that the bush in there and the bush in there I was going to have to do something about. And that's why I was thinking, see, I've got a B40, this is the original B40 camshaft. I was thinking, rather than try and put new bushes in and go to all that sort of stuff, for the experimental stage I would put a steel sleeve on that and that, drill it for the breather, and then if that soft cam didn't fit, I hadn't modified the engine at all, I could just put the B25's original camshaft back in and then get those couple of sleeves off there. But when I looked in the parts book, they're all listed as being 3/4 inch both ends. I think it says something like 745 to, or 740 to 745, 745, or was it 748 maximum and 745 minimum. So anyway, this is a TR25W, which is exactly the same engine there in Jensen's bike. Sort of the first step up from the C15. Although I was looking in Rupert Murdoch then, Rupert Ratio's book, and he had down the C25, which was the very first iteration of this, as still having the valve lifter. And I've just looked in the parts book and it doesn't show it there. It doesn't show it having a part. So anyway, that's beside the point. We know we can't fit the valve lifter. So this is a B40 cam, so this is going to be exactly the same as, apart from the lobes, as the one I'm putting in. So yes, that fits in there perfectly, and excuse me. dowels are tight. Oh no, don't tell me this camshaft is longer. Oh, maybe it won't fit in this engine. I don't think I have a B25 camshaft. See, that doesn't turn that easily there. See, it's definitely the right size. Let me just check these pins. I want to be able to put that case on and turn the camshaft. All right, there are two pins, one there and one in the center, and a dowel down at this end, and both those pins, the holes were sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Come on, Michael, you should know. Oxidized and nasty. So I put a 1/4 inch ream into each of them. This is all gone together now. This is in tight, and that spins perfectly. For those of you who have these, you may remember when I did the B40, I was wondering why this was threaded here, and that apparently was to take up the end float. But Rupert Ratio mentions they stopped doing this, and the way you get rid of the end float is by just getting something that goes around that and tapping this outer bush in a little bit until there's no end float. Right, so we know now that when that camshaft comes, it'll go straight in. Oh, excuse me. Oh, thought I was going to sneeze. So, although you've got to take the clutch off to be able to get the gearbox out, that's sort of like a day's job. So we can do that next week when that comes. If it comes on Monday, if it comes by the post, that's late night actually on a Monday. So Tuesday we'll do that camshaft. So what else can we look at just to round this week off? Well, I will show you what I'm thinking about. So other than the camshaft, the only other thing I wanted to do with this was, as I say, I didn't like the tank. So it suddenly struck me when I measured up that this one actually, this is the one I made for the Chinese one. Is just about right. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to modify this. I might take all the, when I say modify, I really mean I'm going to remake it, but I'm going to be able to use a lot of the stuff. I've got to get some more of this 1/4 inch rod, but I'm going to, so I'll leave the front piece, leave the base, take the top off. The top I don't like, whoops, I don't want to go to this bump. I want to make it much more like that. I also want to bring this in more. So I'm going to take the ribs and actually I might not have to take this top off. I can maybe just reform it. And I'm going to bring this back end in. Oh, it's pouring down now, which with the snow we had of course means it's horrible out there. So I'm going to pull this in so this is slimmer and then goes out. Wassail. Who remembers the wassels? They were sold here as Pentons because what's his name, Penton, imported them, and like he did with the KTMs and something else, he put his own name on them. But he imported, well, Penton made, not Penton, Wassail made a trials bike. Memory serves me right, originally they were going to make them with Bantam engines and then BSA sort of either reneged on the deal to sell them engines or whatever, but they couldn't get Bantam engines, so they put, God, what did they put in? Sachs engines, I think. But they had a really nice tank. It was curved at the front, and they got to about here, and then it went into these nice slim sort of flattish panels, so it was quite slim at the back, bulged out. I'd like to make it like that. So as I say, we'll use some of this and then remake the ribs, and as was mentioned about it being easy to make, I'll make sure it's faired, which is a sort of boat terminology, and I suppose airplanes, to make sure that, you know, these follow each other nicely. If you put a flexible piece along, it should touch them all. So it'll go from there and touch to here, and then the ones here, they'll be more or less flat. So anyway, I'm not sure how much video we've got. Say it's Thursday, I'm not going to be able to get those till Friday, so Saturday I might come out and do some of that, and maybe I'll video it. So until Saturday, you all go away and do something. Well, I know some of you poor buggers have to go to work, but there you go, did my bit. I'll see you on Saturday. Alright, so it's Saturday. I didn't really have time to do anything, but I just popped out to sort of finish off this video, because I know it's 50 some minutes now anyway. So what I just did was I cut that off, and then using a couple of clamps I've pulled this in. So it's all got to be, I'll sand these nubs off, and then I'll get everything to what I'll do is decide which side I like. Put this on a big piece of cardboard that has a centre line, and then I'll make a template of that, whichever side it is that I like, and then flip it over and make sure that side is good as well. And then I'll make the top. I'll show you on the bike. Not that you can see much light, but it's the right length, so that'll go on. Of course, there's always a bit of a gap at the top, so as you can see, it's slimmer at the back here, and we're going to get it to come up a bit, I think. Anyway, that's all we got time for this week. So next week we'll put the camshaft in and that. So that means I've got to take the rocker box off, as I say, to get it to be able to do the push rods easily. When I take the tappets out, the cam follows out. But that, what was that? The B44. It took me 2 hours to strip it down to the crankshaft. So just, you know, I've got to take the clutch off, as I said, to get the gearbox out, but that's not a big job, so we'll get all that done on, say, Tuesday. So Monday I'll potter on with this a bit more, and anyway, we'll see what we can get done. So until then, you stay safe and enjoy yourselves.